Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the monster. You know the image. It is burned into the collective consciousness of the West. You see the writhing nest of vipers hissing where hair should be. You see the boar-like tusks, the skin the color of decay, the eyes that burn with a hateful green luminescence. You see a creature that exists solely to destroy, a beast that must be slain so that the hero may rise. You see the severed head held aloft in the triumphant grip of Perseus, a trophy of masculinity conquering the chaotic feminine. Now, open your eyes and let that image shatter. Forget the movies, forget the cartoons, forget the statues of the victorious hero, because that is not the story. That is the propaganda of the victors, the lies told by the gods to justify their cruelty. The story of Medusa is not a fantasy adventure. It is not a hero's journey. It is a tragedy. It is perhaps the single most devastating indictment of power, victimization, and divine hypocrisy in all of mythology. To understand Medusa, we must strip away the scales. We must silence the hissing snakes. We have to go back to before the blood, before the stone, before the curse. We must go back to Ovid, the Roman poet who dared to write the truth that the Greeks often whispered, but rarely faced. We must meet Medusa, not the monster, but the woman. Imagine a world ruled by petty tyrants, with the power of nuclear weapons. That is the world of the Olympians. We like to think of the Greek gods as benevolent overseers, flawed, but ultimately just. This is a mistake. The gods of Ovid are forces of nature wrapped in human ego. They are narcissism made manifest. Zeus, Poseidon, Athena. They view humanity not as children to be protected, but as playthings, as pawns, or worse, as property. In this world, beauty is not a gift. Beauty is a target. And Medusa was beautiful. She was not born a monster. She was born mortal. The only one of the 3 Gorgon sisters who could die. This mortality made her precious. It made her fragile. She was a maiden of distinct, breathtaking grace, famous throughout the land. Suitors traveled from city-states just to catch a glimpse of her. But of all her features, the poets say it was her hair that captivated the world. It was a cascading river of gold, distinct and lovely, her greatest pride. But Medusa did not want the attention of men. She did not want the complications of desire. She wanted peace. She wanted purpose. And so, she dedicated her life to Athena. She became a priestess in the temple of the goddess of wisdom. Picture the sanctity of that life. The cool marble floors against bare feet, the smell of frankincense and myrrh, the quiet rhythm of prayer and service. Medusa took a vow of celibacy, pledging her body and soul to the virgin goddess. She believed that if she followed the rules, if she served the divine, she would be safe. She believed that the temple was a sanctuary where the chaos of the world could not touch her. She was wrong, because the gods do not respect boundaries, they do not respect vows, and they certainly do not respect the word. No. Enter Poseidon, the lord of the sea, the earth-shaker. He is the brother of Zeus and carries the same entitlement, the same violent lust, but with the added tempestuousness of the ocean. He saw Medusa, and for a god like Poseidon, to see is to want, and a want is to take. He did not care about her vows. He did not care about her devotion to his rival. In fact, that likely made her more appealing. To take something that belonged to Athena was a power move, a way to strike at his niece in their eternal, petty war for dominance. He stalked her. He waited. What happened next was not a romance. It was not a seduction. Ovid is clear, even in his poetic restraint. It was a violation. It was an act of violence committed by an unstoppable force against a powerless woman. The temple was desecrated, not by Medusa, but by the god who forced himself upon her. Imagine the silence that followed. Poseidon leaves, retreating back to the waves, satisfied, untouched by consequence, and Medusa is left alone on the cold marble floor. She is broken. She is traumatized. She has been stripped of her vows, her dignity, and her safety. She waits for Athena. She surely thinks, "My goddess will help me. My goddess will be enraged at what her uncle has done to her priestess, to her shrine." She waits for salvation, but salvation does not come. Athena does appear, and she is enraged, but her rage is not directed at Poseidon. Why? Because in the hierarchy of Olympus, power protects power. Athena cannot or will not punish the Lord of the Sea. He is too strong. He is family. To fight him is to risk a war she might not win. But someone has to be punished. The stain on the temple must be cleansed. The shame must be placed somewhere. And so, the goddess of wisdom, the supposed champion of justice, looks down at the weeping woman on the floor. She does not see a victim. She sees a defiled object. She sees a woman who allowed this to happen. She sees a mortal who dared to be beautiful enough to tempt a god. Athena turns her cold, grey eyes upon Medusa, and she speaks the curse. If her hair was her pride, then her hair would be her damnation. The transformation is instantaneous and agonizing. Imagine the physical horror. Medusa's scalp begins to burn. That golden hair, so carefully brushed and braided, begins to thicken. It begins to writhe. The strands fuse and bloat, sprouting heads, flickering tongues, and venomous fangs. The sound of her own weeping is replaced by the dry, rhythmic hissing of 100 vipers coiling around her skull. Her skin, once soft, hardens. It cracks and turns the color of old stone, of dead things. Her hands curl into claws, and her eyes, those human eyes, are burned away, replaced by orbs of terrible, lethal power. Athena grants her a gift, she says, a defense. No man will ever hurt her again, because no man will ever be able to look at her again. Medusa is banished. She is exiled to a lonely island, far from the civilization she once served. Think of the psychological torture of this existence. Medusa is still in there. The woman who loved incense and prayer. The woman who had hopes and fears. She is trapped inside a monster's body. She is surrounded by the constant, maddening sound of snakes hissing in her ears. She cannot sleep without them coiling against her face, and the loneliness, the profound, crushing isolation. She craves human connection, but she carries a weapon she cannot turn off. If she looks at a bird, it falls from the sky as a pebble. If she looks at a small animal, it freezes into a statue. But the world of men is cruel, and they do not leave her alone. They come hunting. They seek the glory of killing the monster, and she defends herself. She has to. The island becomes a garden of statues. But look closely at the statues. These are not heroic poses. These are men caught in moments of terror, hands raised to shield their faces, mouths open in a scream that will never be heard. And then comes Perseus. We are taught to cheer for Perseus, the golden boy, the son of Zeus. He is sent on a quest to retrieve the head of the Gorgon. But let us look at this quest honestly. Perseus is not a brave warrior facing a dragon. He is an assassin, sent to execute a victim. And he does not do it alone. The gods gang up on her. Hermes gives him winged sandals. Hades gives him a helm of invisibility, and Athena, still nursing her grudge, still not satisfied with Medusa's ruin, gives Perseus a polished, mirror-bright shield. They arm him with divine technology to kill one lonely, cursed woman living in a cave. He waits until she is asleep. Let that sink in. The great hero finds the monster while she is sleeping. Perhaps, in her dreams, the snakes are quiet. Perhaps, in her dreams, she is back in the temple, young and whole. Perseus creeps in, walking backward, looking only at the reflection in the shield. He sees her sleeping form. He sees the sadness in her face, and he raises the sickle. It is a butchery, one stroke, but the indignity does not end with her death. Perseus takes the head. He uses her. He flies across the world, pulling her head out like a weapon, turning his enemies to stone. And finally, the ultimate insult. Perseus gives the head to Athena, and Athena takes the severed head of her former priestess and mounts it onto the center of her shield, the Aegis. So, why does this story matter? Because it is not a story about a monster. It is a story about the devastating reality of injustice. It asks us to look at who we label as monsters in our own society. Who do we cast out? Who do we blame for the violence committed against them? When you look at the image of Medusa now, do not see a villain. See the tragedy. See the woman who did everything right and was destroyed by those with power. And realize that the most terrifying thing in the story was never the woman with snakes in her hair. The true horror was always the beautiful, golden gods who smiled as they destroyed her.